All right, so this week we are on week 14, and then we're going to take a look at graphing linear equations. So put the notes up real quick. Let's go here. Okay, so we got the notes today. MCAS questions, I'll give you those in a little bit. You'll have time to work on them, maybe today and tomorrow. 2 IXLs, no recommended this week. And then we'll do a Desmos activity and 20 diagnostics. So no recommended, but we'll do the 20 diagnostics. All right. So graphing lines. Okay. How many people have done like y equals mx plus b or something like that in their algebra class at some point this year, probably last year too? Okay. All right. So when you're graphing a line, first of all, they're going to give you some kind of grid, okay, like that. And there's 2 different types of equations we can use when we graph something. Okay. One of them is called slope-intercept form, and the other one is called standard form. All right. So depending on which format you use, it's a little bit different how you graph it, but it's really 2 ways of doing the same thing. All right. We're going to start out with slope-intercept form. All right. So if you want to graph something in slope-intercept form, the first thing is it has to be in this format. A lot of people just call it like y equals mx plus b, but the real name is slope-intercept. Each letter in that formula stands for something. Can anyone tell me what does the M represent? When you're drawing a line, M is the slope. Yep. And the slope describes basically how steep the line is. Okay, so we'll talk a little about that. And what about B? That's the y-intercept. Okay, the y-intercept, that's when you draw a line. It's where your graph crosses the y-axis. Okay, so if you had something like this, there's your line right there. That point, that's your y-intercept. What's this point called? This one's the y-intercept. How about this one over here? Yeah? X-intercept. That's the x-intercept. Yeah, that's where the graph crosses the x-axis. Okay, but for y equals mx plus b, you're interested where it crosses the y-axis. And then how steep the line is, that's your slope. So like if I do a line like this, those 2 red lines have exactly the same y-intercept. Okay? They both cross the y-axis right there. But one of them is steeper than the other one. Okay? So if I call this line like line 1, line 2, we would say line 1 has a steeper slope than line 2. Okay? Now, because these lines both go up as you go to the right, that means something about their slope. So now I'll go through what are the 2 kinds of slopes that you could have. All right. We'll do the 2 kinds of slopes in a second. One more thing first. When you are graphing a line, the first thing you want to do is look at the y-intercept. Right? You don't even have to look at the M yet. Okay, that's going to be the second thing. Okay, so the first thing is you look for your y-intercept, and you're going to put whatever number you have. Let's say it was like y equals 3x plus 8. I'd look at the 8, and I'd say, okay, that means my graph crosses the y-axis at 8. So I would go to my graph, I would count up 8, and I'd put a dot right there. Okay. I'm not going to use that because that's for another problem. But that's the first thing I would do, is put a dot on my y-intercept. Okay. Now, once I get that, I need one other point. Because once you have 2 points, that's enough information to draw a line. Okay, but you need 2 points. All right, so that's where the M is going to come in. Okay, once you use the B, the next thing we're going to look at is the M. First thing is, if you have a problem and the M is not a fraction, okay, we're going to make it a fraction. Anybody know what number could I put under the 3 to make it a fraction, but it wouldn't change that it's still the number 3? Yeah? A 1. A 1, yep. If you have a problem where they give you a fraction like this one, 1/8, then it's fine. You don't need to make it a fraction. Okay? It already is. In a problem where they do not give you a number in the bottom, just put it with the 1 in the bottom. Okay. Now, when you write your slope, does anybody know what you call the top word? Begins with an R. Yep.
Rise.
Rise, yep. Rise. And the bottom also begins with an R. That's called the run. Okay, so the rise, that's your up and your down. Okay, so I'll show you an example. But rise has to do with up and down. So depending on if you have a positive slope or a negative slope, the top number is either going to be positive if you need to go up, or it'll be negative if you need to go down. Okay? So that number is going to tell us whether to go up or down. And the bottom number, well, that one we always go to the right. Okay? So whether it's up and to the right or down and to the right, we always go to the right. The only reason we would go to the left is if we're on the edge of the graph and we don't have any room to go to the right. Okay? You can go in the other direction, okay? And I'll show you that. But as long as I have enough room, I'm always going to try to go to the right. Unless I don't, then I'll have to go to the left. Okay? So that's the formula for slope. I don't think that was on your notes. But slope is rise over run. All right, so let's look at an example and see how it works. All right, so first one. It says graph the line using the slope and the y-intercept. All right. Let's look at example 1. Okay, first number I want to look at there is the y-intercept. What is the y-intercept in example 1? Yep. 7. Yep. So we're going to put a point on the number 7 on the y-axis. How do I get to 7 on the y-axis? What direction do I go? Yep. Up. How many?
7.
Up 7. Yeah. So we're going to put a dot on 7. Okay, so that's the first step. Okay. Next step. From the y-intercept. Okay. So since we're doing the next step from this dot, if you put that dot in the wrong spot, then the next step will automatically be wrong. Okay. So from the y-intercept, use the slope to plot another point. Okay, so we're going to graph one more point. Okay. What is my slope in that example right there? Yeah?
1/8.
1/8. And what's the 1 called? That's the rise. And the 8 is my, yeah, run. Yep. Rise over run. So the top number is a positive 1. If it's a positive, we're going to go up, and then we're going to go to the right. In the next problem we do, it's a negative, so we're going to go down and right. But the first one, positive, go up and go to the right.
Sorry.
You okay? You need a tap, you need a napkin.
No.
Try to get some tissue. Yeah, if you need a
I'm like,
paper
thank
towel.
you. Exploded.
Okay, so rise, run. We're going to go up 1, and we're going to go to the right 8. Up 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now you can go backwards. Okay, some people will also go the exact opposite of what I just said. Down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can do that. We don't need to because we already had 2 points. That's enough. Right? You just draw your 2 points and then you make your line. Okay. So 1/8, that's pretty good. About like that. Okay, so 1/8 is a line that does not have it's not very steep. Okay, 1/8 is it's pretty gradual. Like if you were walking up that, that's not a very steep hill. Right? Okay. Any question on how we graph that one? Okay, let's look at the next one. So the next one is y equals negative 2x plus 9. Okay. What is my slope? Oh no, so let's do that second. What's my y-intercept? Start with that. Yeah? 9. Okay. So we're going to put a dot on the y-intercept on the y-axis. Just like that. Okay. It's really important we get that dot right, because if we don't, then we're automatically going to get the slope. Well, the slope's not going to be correct because we're going to mess that up because we messed up the y-intercept. All right. So now my slope in this one is not a fraction. What can I do to make that negative 2 into a fraction? Yeah. Yeah, we're going to put it over 1. So now think of these two numbers as directions. It's a negative slope. Which way do I always try to go when it's negative slope? I go to the what and what?
Down and right.
Down and right. How many down? Well, that's the top number. How many right? That's the bottom number. So we're going to try to go down 2 and right 1. Down 2, right 1. And if you want to do it another time, you can do it as many times as you want. If I have more space, sometimes I do it more than once, so it makes my line easier to draw. A lot of times if you're doing it on a computer kind of program, you just need to do 2 dots and then the computer will do it perfectly. Right? But when we're drawing it by hand, it helps to have a few more dots. Okay. Now I went down 2 and right 1. If I went up 2 and right 1, would that be the same thing? What do you think? Mia, what do you think? No. If I went from the dot that I started out, if I go up 2 and right 1, that's a different line. So you do have to make sure you go down and to the right. Okay, and draw your lines. Pretty good. All right. So that's how you graph a line in y equals mx plus b. And if we have a minute after, we can try one on the IXL too. All right, so the second one. What if you don't have an equation in y equals mx plus b, okay, like those two? Okay. I know that those are not in y equals mx plus b because the y is not by itself on the left. If the y is not by itself, there's a couple different ways you can do it. All right? So depending on your teacher, you might have learned different ways. I'm going to show you one way to do it. Okay, the way I'm going to show you how to graph something like that is to take a problem that's not in y equals mx plus b and turn it into y equals mx plus b. So we're going to change these so they look more like those. Okay, that's how we're going to do it. Again, that's not the only way to do it. All right. So how do you change something like that to get the y by itself? Okay, the first thing you focus on is this. It's the x term. We're going to get the x term away from the y. Because the goal eventually is to get that all by itself. But there's 2 steps. The first thing you deal with is the x term. The last thing you deal with is the number that's right next to the y. To get the x term on the other side, you're either going to add it or you're going to subtract it. It depends what's in your problem. Okay, you have to do the opposite of what's in your problem. Okay, so that's the first step. You're going to deal with the x term. And then the second step is we're going to deal with the y term. So think of it, it's like alphabetical order. X comes before y in the alphabet. You're going to deal with the x before you deal with the y. To get rid of the number that's attached to the y, like the -5 or the +14, you're going to use division. That's how you get rid of the number attached to y. You're going to divide by that number. Okay. Now, once you do these two steps, your problem is going to look exactly like one of those. Now you can do the same thing you did for those ones. So you'll plot your y-intercept, and then the next thing is you'll use your slope, that's the rise over run, to get one more point on the line. Okay, so those two steps, those are the only extra two steps you have to do. All right, so let's look at this first one. In that first equation, okay, example 3, is the y by itself?
No.
What do you think? No, the y is not by itself, so we got to fix it so it is. What's the first thing that I'm going to try to move to the other side? Am I going to work with the x first, or am I going to work with the y first? Yeah, right. Remember, it's alphabetical order. You're going to start with the x. This 4x needs to go on the other side. Then how would I move that 4x over to the right side? You would subtract it. Okay? You always do the opposite of whatever you see in your problem. So if you see a positive 4x, you're going to do a minus 4x on each side. When you do 4x minus 4x, that's gone. What's still on the left-hand side that I haven't done anything with this yet? Oh, I'm dialing. What's still on the left-hand side? Yep. So we still have the negative 5y. That's on the left. And now what would I have on the right? And remember, I want to try to get this in y equals mx plus b. So we want to think about which term we would write first. Anyone think they could tell me what would be on the right? Yeah.
Negative 4x.
Yep, negative 4x. And what else?
Minus 40.
Perfect. Yep. If you were thinking negative 40 minus 4x, you're not wrong with that. It's just not y equals mx plus b. Okay, so we really want to get it in that format. So you want the x term first, and the number without the x second. Okay. So now, negative 40. Is that my y-intercept? What do we think? Isn't the y-intercept always the number that's at the end? What do we think? Ryan, is that my y-intercept? Negative 40?
No,
No, that's not my y-intercept. How come?
because you need to divide the negative 5y by 5 and then divide the negative 40 by 5.
Yeah, we have to divide everything by that negative 5.
Yeah.
So all three of those have to be divided by negative 5 before you can start graphing. And once we do that, now it's going to be like the problems we started out with. Negative 5 divided by negative 5, that's gone. Okay, so we get y equals. How about negative divided by a negative? What kind of number does that give me? Gives me a positive. We're not going to divide 4 by 5 because when you're dealing with slope, you just want to leave it as a fraction. You can leave the x in the top, but usually when you write slope and it's a fraction, you put the x next to it. That's usually how you do it. Okay. Same thing's going to happen here. Negative divided by negative. Those cancel. And we get a positive. And now, Derek, what's 40 divided by 5? 8. Perfect. That's the equation that I want to draw now. Okay. So my y-intercept in that one is 8. And if I try to go up and to the right, I'm going to run into a problem. I'm going to go off the graph. So I can try, like I can go up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So up 4 might be like right about there. And then I have to go right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's not too bad. I can still kind of do it. But instead of going up and to the right, what other direction could I go? I could go what? I could go down and left. I could go backwards. And that'll at least give me another point that's on my graph somewhere. So let's go down. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I can see how good I did at kind of estimating it. That actually looks still pretty good. Okay. And drawing a line. I'm a little bit off. Actually, no, that's pretty good. It's not bad. And there's your line. Okay, so a couple extra steps first, but then once you do those steps, it's the same as what we did before. Okay, any question on that one? Let's look at the last one. Okay. Anyone think they can tell me what my first step is going to be on example 4 to get the y by itself? Yeah.
Subtract x.
And what are you going to subtract from both sides?
63.
63
X.
x. Yep. That's the first thing we do. And Ben, once you do that, can you tell me what will be on the left-hand side still?
63x plus 1,260.
Uh,
on the left.
Yeah, left side.
14y.
So this is gone. We got 14y. And what's going to be on the right?
63x plus 1,260.
Okay, so we're definitely going to have a plus 1,260. But what kind of slope do we have?
Negative.
Right, it's a negative, okay? Because there's a negative 63. So when we rewrite it, just make sure we put that negative in front of the x. So negative 63x plus 1,260. And what's my last step to get y by itself? Yep, divide by 14. And remember, you do it here, there, and there. Well, at least that's gone. 14 is not going to go into 63, so that's going to end up staying the way it is. Let's see if 14 goes into 1,260. All right, we'll get 90, so that one's not as bad. Okay, so what's my y-intercept on that problem? 90. So I got that. And now I need to go down 63, and I need to go right 14. Well, if I'm at 90 and I go down 63, I'm going to be at 27. So I'm just going to write that down. So if I go down 63, I'm at 27. And I have to go right, how much? 14. I'm at 0, so when I go right 14, I'm just at 14. So that's my next point, 27 comma 14. So not a nice point. So 27, probably about right there, right under 30. And then 14, I'm probably a little too far to the right. Oh, no, I was probably right about there. Okay, so it's a little bit under 30. And then to the right, 14, well, that's 10. That's 20. So 14 is pretty close to in the middle of the two. Okay, if you're doing that by hand, that's close enough. You're not going to get it perfect because it's not a nice number. And then just plot your line about like that. So those are the kind of problems that you'll be looking at this week, graphing in y equals mx plus b and standard form. If you have another way to do standard form that your teacher taught you and you want to do it that way, that's fine. But that's the way that I'm going to show you how to do it.